Next weekend at Augusta, it's the Masters. And with 50% off a Now Sports membership, you can catch every, and every. Watch all 4 days of the Masters live with 50% off a Now Sports membership for 3 months. It's your sport on your terms. Join in at nowtv.com. 18 plus, streamed via internet. Offer ends 2nd of May. Standard pricing after 3 months.
Millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people.
You cannot shake hands with a clenched fist.
Produced by a nuclear exchange would be carried by wind and water and soil and seed to the far corners of
the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We're not saying that planet Earth is coming to an end. We're saying that planet Earth is about to be refurbished, spaded under, and have another chance to serve as a garden for another civilization.
Most of the people in here are just your reflections. They're your mistakes.
1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms.
1 million of the planet's 8 million species are threatened.
You are what you repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence ought to be a habit, not an act.
Your lives and the credibility of the United Nations is at stake.
Epstein didn't kill himself.
The reason this is such an interesting time is not only because we're on the threshold of the end of this civilization.
They're trying to take you out with bullshit.
The experience of the past 2 years has proven beyond doubt that no nation can appease the Nazis.
To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish.
In the language of the U.S. Department of Defense, these are unidentified aerial phenomena.
Roswell's a very interesting place with a lot of people that would like to know what's going on.
There is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
This is the Garden of Doom.
Welcome everyone to episode 31 of Garden of Doom. Today is March 14th, and as promised, we have our all-star panel starting today, and we are going to talk about the Land of the Lost. All of us are of the age where Land of the Lost was a TV series that was part of our daily lives. We were probably all 6 or 7 years old when it was on. Yeah, we're talking about the series from 1974 to 1976, not the movie, but we may get to the movie at some point. We'll see. Anyway, here is the plan before I introduce you to the panel. So this show is going to be light and fun, but it's also deep. This show is deep. There's a lot of chewy stuff in here. And so we're starting with season 1. Originally, we were going to do episodes 1 through 9 in this episode, but it was just too much. There's too much juice in there. There's too much meat. So we abridged it to episodes 1 through 6. And then we'll reconvene every 4 to 6 weeks because this show's about variety, and I don't want to bore you guys out there listening, even if you love it, or if you hate it, so that you come back. So the plan is every 4 to 6 weeks we'll do another 6 episodes or so, depending on how chock full of information they are. There are story building episodes and character building episodes and world building episodes, and the world building ones tend to be the ones that are very meaty, and we'll see if those start to thin out as the world is completed. Anyway, there's also a lot of side stories with the characters, the actors, the writers, and while it's inevitable that we'll probably touch on those things, the plan is if we're still together and we're still friends after this non-routine expedition, at the end of this, maybe we'll do another episode and we'll talk about the actors and the cast and the crew and some of the stories that go with that, because some of it is really incredible and some of the things that we see on this show turn out to be non-coincidental at all. And if we're still brave at the end of that, we may watch the more recent Will Ferrell movie, and do a review of that. I hear it wasn't very good, but panning something can be fun too, and who knows? Maybe we'll like it. Who knows? We're a different sort. So that's what we're doing. There's 43 episodes total, so this could be 6, 7, 8 episodes before the end of it, but we'll see. All right, I will say this. Without Land of the Lost, I'm not sure that there would be a Garden of Doom. I can't really draw a straight line to it, but it's definitely part of the DNA of this show. So, all right. So we have a great panel in no particular order except the order that they actually sent me their bios and I wrote them. We have Marc Hammer, who I've known since I'm 5 years old, apparently. He is a Hollywood big shot guy. He's worked on such movies, and I can't edit myself because, it's fun. But most recently, you probably saw a movie on Netflix that he was the executive producer of, The Devil All the Time. It had Spider-Man, Tom Holland in it. Also worked on Spider-Man 3 with a different Spider-Man. But other such little movies like Django Unchained, The Social Network, you might have heard of that one, The Life of Pi, which I successfully didn't watch on 2 legs of an international flight, so missed it 4 times. The Dark Tower, The Hateful Eight, Spy Game, Heat. He's worked on such TV shows as Magnum P.I. and Westworld. And he first erupted on the scene with Volcano. Yeah, that ties into Garden of Doom. Then we have Sharon Pessnar, who I've known since I'm probably 11. And Sharon is a docent at the Nassau County Museum of Art. That's in New York. She is a student of permaculture at Ecoversity. That brought her to Costa Rica to actually do on-site studies. We may explore that at some point too, but I know that Costa Rica is very well known for having like all 6 or 7 ecosystems in one country, which makes it pretty diverse and maybe unique. She was also an earth science teacher for a decade, and she wanted to make sure that you all knew that she was a mom too. And she threw in that she was the parent of the PTA. So there it is. It's recorded. It's out there. She's a big shot. And then we have Erin Sharkey, who is our resident medical expert. She is a former occupational therapist at the Kennedy Krieger Institute, and she's now in private practice and still doing pediatric occupational therapy. So our good guy person there, or good gal, gender neutral, enough of that. And she can lay expertise onto splints and bandanas and how they work with relation to episode 1, Chaka. So, panel, anything you want to say about yourselves before we get started? Nope, that's good. All right, so they will speak, I promise you. All right, so I want to start before episode 1 with the song, because the first swerve, as far as I'm concerned, is in the very first word of the song, because it starts Marshall, Will, and Holly. Okay, Marshall is their last name. It should be Rick, Will, and Holly. Rick is the father's name. Do you know how many episodes I was confused watching this second time around, wondering who the hell is Rick? Why are they calling him Rick? I thought Rick was the brother that comes into these episodes, apparently not until season 3, but I didn't know that at the time. So, yeah. So, is that a swerve? I mean, does that mean it's a dream? Is this some sort of fugue state, some sort of drug thing, or is it something similar? I know that Mark had a theory on this, which was a very Occam's razor, very deep. So we're going to start with our professional story builder and world builder, Marc Hammer, Hollywood big shot.
I don't even remember what my theory was, Jeff. But what I wanted to say was the other thing that's kind of ironic and weird about this, the opening and the song, is that the credit of the brother is Wesley. Yes. Everyone else has the first and last name as Marshall Holly, but it just says Wesley as Will.
Yes, I took note of that, and I keep track of that. And actually, originally we were going to do episode 9, so I'm through episode 9. And yes, it is still Wesley through episode 9. So yeah, he's like Cher or Bono or Madonna. He's, definitely...
just like Marshall is his last name. I don't know. Right. I've been called Hammer my whole life, but it's a weird, funny little tidbit that no one can really answer.
We can answer it, but I think it's because they were trying to make him into a teen idol and they wanted to give him one name, because his last name's a little bit odd. It's EUR, like Europe without the OPE. and I think they wanted to sort of, make him like a Sean Cassidy, David Cassidy type, even before those Leif Garretson. It's not Garretson. What was his name? Leif
Garrett.
Garrett, right? There's a Griff Garrison in wrestling, and there's a Leif Erikson in history. No, Mark, your suggestion was, hey, this is a 70s folk song, and maybe they just needed 2 syllables to make it work. That was you. You remember that, man?
That was me. I was, I think I had some crystals going through my brain that day, and I forgot.
Yeah, maybe you're in a fugue state now. Erin, you were raising your hand very politely. By the way, I'm not a teacher. You don't have to raise your hand, but actually it works pretty well because, folks, we're on Zoom. I know this is audio, but we're seeing each other on Zoom. So what point did you have, Erin?
Oh, no, as far as the science end, I'm just an incredibly huge geek. And when I was looking at Wesley, so he actually used to hang out with apparently Leif Garrett and Sean Cassidy and that crew. Sang with the Jackson 5, had a bit of a music career at the time.
Yes. We're going to touch on all this on the retrospective of the cast because we can talk about these guys forever. But
that's why it was Wesley. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why it was Wesley.
Well, perhaps, but none of those people had one name. I mean, we're saying their first name and their surname. So Wesley is sort of a unique thing at the time. I mean, I think only Cher was a one-name star at the time. Anyway, moving on. So, also in the beginning, we see that they go down a waterfall that they say is 1,000 feet below, but we're not really sure if that's true or not, if that's hyperbole or if that's understatement. Personally, I think it's understatement, but I think the most significant thing, other than the maybe swerve, was the rock wall that closed behind them, which closed the portal from our world to this world. And one of the things I had to keep reminding myself was they haven't gone back in time or forward in time on Earth. They're someplace entirely different. So with that, we're going to get into episode 1, Chaka. And Erin, since we're going to go ladies first and alphabetically, we're going to start with you. What were your impressions of episode 1, Chaka?
I guess the thing that struck me the most about it was that the communication of it was that they didn't understand. They didn't know what he was. They thought that he was a monkey. But at the same time, I think we had talked about this before. It looks like they've been there for a while. How had they not kind of run into these guys before? They've got their pulley system. They've got their cave. And it just seems a little odd that if they're out there for a while, they haven't run across anybody yet.
Yeah. Sharon, any initial thoughts on the Chaka story?
Yeah, I mean, so when I first started watching it, I didn't realize that they were just in this other universe. So from an earth science teacher, it bothered me that they had human, ape-like people along with dinosaurs, because that just wasn't true. And I was like, I didn't want kids to think that Bones people and dinosaurs did not coexist together. So it wasn't until later that I realized once the other creatures came, that I was like, okay, there's no, So I thought that how they treated Chaka was very condescending. Whenever they talk to the people, they're yelling at them like they're deaf. So then that's bothers me. I'm also recognizing that I'm looking at it from a 2021 point of view as opposed to a 7-year-old 1974 point of view. So I kind of have had to shift, my perspective of that. But those were the initial things that kind of popped up into my head when I first started watching it.
Well, that's very mature because I was 6 when I was watching it. You're much older than me, obviously. So those are. But yeah, Mark, how about you?
I just thought the language and the communication was super interesting. How, in a matter of 3 seconds, by saying "me Will," "me Holly," that he understood that they were actually saying that was their name and not like anything else in the universe. And he's like, "Oh, me Chaka." I just thought the communication was fantastic.
That's the Bing for a winning point. Good.
Completely.
Yes.
And then friend was one of the first words, and I forget what some of the other first words too. But Yeah, it's what is Chaka? What is Chaka? What is that species? What is a
Pakuni.
What was that?
Pakuni.
Yeah, Pakuni.
Paku, right. And then it's funny because later on we'll talk about it, but when the other Pakus come, they look a little different than him. He's the only like light brown one, and everybody else is dark brown. And they just look a little different. I don't know if it's because he's younger and maybe they mature into that. But to me, the whole communication thing was fantastic. Just how they all of a sudden started to communicate with 5 basic words, and they knew what they each were saying.
Yeah, so let me do a little world building and character building, or a little story building for what we've seen. And I'm skipping ahead a little bit. Some of this information came later, but I think it's probably helpful for the audience to know. First of all, the song goes, they're on a routine expedition. But let's give that a little context, because if you and I went on a routine expedition, we probably would have a canteen. We probably have pack some energy bars and some vitamins, and maybe we'd have a lighter and flint and some stuff. But they're very scout-like. They're very well equipped. They've got their raft. They've got their life vests, which are more like airline life vests than the kind of traditional life vests where you go on a canoe or a motorboat. But Rick is in a safari type outfit. We learn that Rick is a park ranger and Will is a Boy Scout. So obviously they have some skill sets there. They also have a substantial garden at home, which they talk about in coming episodes in little bits. And they're used to making their own types of food. They made homemade ice cream, which we'll get into. And we learn later on that Holly had a horse, which maybe explains how she's able to have the patience and the wherewithal to train Dopey. But it's still a bit much with them with the little raft and the routine expedition. Now, we learn right away that it's not our world, or at least we should, because when we first see them, there's 3 moons. So if you just saw that as background, maybe that you missed it, but the 3 moons, I think, is right there as a very clear signal to tell us this ain't Earth. There was the never-ending waterfall, sort of the dream fell forever. If you go with the current state of physics and astrophysics, portal, wormhole, there was a article just yesterday actually posted on Garden of Doom's website where scientists have a theory where humans can survive going through a wormhole. Don't ask me to get into it more than that. I didn't read the whole thing beyond the headline. That's enough for me to be convinced. I'm totally joining Space Force. The other thing I noticed with this is that this is very pre-Spielbergian. And what I mean by that is in the Spielberg movies and sort of everything post, it's the kids that have the open mind. They're the ones who want to be friends with E.T. In Stranger Things, they're the ones that figure out about the Upside Down. The adults are reluctant to it, and the adults who sign on, sort of are, maybe have their own little problems. But here, Dad, Rick, has the adaptive mind. He's figured out what's going on basically from jump, which is a little bit strange in and of itself. So we see a pylon emitting sound and energy. It's smooth, it's cold, it's effervescent. The hominids, I'm not sure, Sharon, that these are from any kind of Earth anthropology. I don't know that they have to, since it's a different world. And we learn later that this is the place of where all lost things gather, and we'll get to that certainly. As far as Mark's question is concerned, I always assume, but don't know, that the other 2 Pakuni are just older. But since nobody grows, time seems to work very quickly in some regards and very slowly in other regards. They did seem to build a lot in a very short time. They certainly weren't there immediately, but maybe Chaka's just the runt of the litter. I sort of got that feeling, the way they sort of picked on him a little bit in later episodes. But yeah, Sharon was right. The dinosaurs and all other life are in the wrong timelines. So
if we can go back to the portal for a split second.
Of course we can.
I always find it interesting, and I worked on a movie where a little boy went through a portal into another world. But it's interesting that they were on a river and the raft went down a waterfall, and they ended up it would make more sense if they ended up in the center of the Earth rather than a different planet or a different world. Like how did they go down a waterfall into the middle of the core of the Earth and end up in a different why are there moons in the core of the Earth? Like, it's such a strange place where they ended up, but yet I guess we're not really supposed to question that. We can here, but if you really want to pick apart the series, I would like to know what Sid and Marty Krofft were smoking, or to come up with this idea. Like, it's so fascinating. Where they are. Where are they? It's crazy.
Well, and they talk about the earthquake, like the biggest earthquake in history. So there's an earthquake. Okay, I get it. And the same thing. You're going down. You're following. It's going downward into the earth. So how is there a portal?
I mean, I guess we suspend disbelief and just realize that that's what the show is. That's what happens, and that's where they are. But yes, you could pick that apart for 10 episodes and try and figure out where are they. I guess it doesn't really matter where they are, because that just happens to be where somebody wrote it, and that's where they ended up.
Well, Sharon, you're a scientist. What do you think?
Okay, I'm not a scientist. But I'm going to say that I kind of cheated, and I was reading a little bit. They were taking like artistic license and just saying. I feel like when I look at this show, I'm looking at it more with my art background more than any kind of scientific eyes, because in art today, when we look back at art in history, we already have prior knowledge. And we already know all of the stages between that period of time and today that happened. So that when we look back at pieces of art, we already know what came after it, as opposed to when art was happening at that time, it was like, it was new and revolutionary, just like, the technology, we look at it today and on the show, and we think, oh my God, it's so lame. I mean, that was kind of my first reaction when I was like, he really wants me to watch this? I was like, this is so, whatever. And then I just kind of went with it. And when you go and you switch from your 20, 50, whatever, something age, and you look at it from 1974, and I'm 6 or 7 years old, all of these questions that you're asking are adult questions. Little kids don't ask these questions. They don't they just are like looking at it, and they're excited, and there's trouble happening, and how are they going to get out of there? And, so I was trying to change my perspective, which I kind of said earlier, so I'm not looking at it from once I kind of let go of being any kind of scientific explanation for anything, I just kind of let go, and I just started to watch it with more of an open mind and more childlike, view of it. And that's what they were banking on when they were making the show, was that they were like, it's kids. So if there's holes in the story, or there's holes in how this progressed from this to this, they're like, whatever. Kids not going to.
So on a similar note, what you were saying is that we shouldn't be looking at the series from a visual effects standpoint either. And we shouldn't be comparing the visual effects to 2021 visual effects of the earthquake and the rafts. And if you really look at it closely and watch the backdrops, I mean, it's so hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, do you guys remember the McLaughlin Group?
What was that?
Do you guys remember the McLaughlin Group? The political show with John McLaughlin, and you have Fred. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm gonna channel my inner John McLaughlin and say, you're all wrong. And here is the reason why. See, you all think it was water and into the center of the earth. It was not. They started on water, so they processed this whole thing in their mind as going down a waterfall. They did not go down a waterfall. They went through a portal. It wasn't a crack in the earth. The crack in the earth wasn't to go into the earth. The crack of the earth was a portal, a wormhole into another dimension, into another world entirely. They just processed it in their head that they were going down a waterfall, but it wasn't a waterfall at all. That's just how they understood it. So they went to an entirely different world. You're all welcome. So, however, Mark is completely right on the visual effects part of it. That is definitely through a different lens. So
that's a whole episode. That's a whole different one full episode we could talk about the.
Yeah. Well, we could talk a whole full episode about the lack of continuity in Will's buttons on his shirt. I mean, that by itself is and the bandana factory, which apparently is somewhere in this world as well. So let's talk about a couple things that they have there. First of all, there's a lot of parallels or similarities between this and the Star Trek universe. And when we get into the cast and crew and the writers, not this episode, but one is unavoidable. We'll learn just how much there is, but the prime directive in Star Trek is you never interfere in the local culture. This is completely anti-Star Trek. This is absolute assimilation. We're getting right involved. We are imposing ourselves on this, not necessarily to take over, but just, we're definitely getting involved. So it's very anti-Star Trek. We've already established that Chaka's people are called the Paku or the Pakuni. I don't know if that's just a difference in pronunciation or it's singular versus plural. But yes, the communication came pretty easily, which is good. It means that our Chaka, our Pakuni are pretty smart. But let's go back to this cave, which we later learn is called the High Bluff. They have furniture in there. They've got a garden going. They built a pulley elevator basket system. Where'd they get the rope? Where'd they get the axes and the hammers? I mean, listen, I'm okay with the routine expedition. You're having a little bit of rope, but not enough for pulley systems. And, I'm sure that you have like a little hatchet like a Boy Scout has, but something to cut down trees and hammers and things like that. Oh, yes.
I also noticed that there was an episode where she was wandering around aimlessly trying to get water, and all of a sudden these two plastic jugs appeared out of and then also from an ecological, I was so annoyed that they had these big plastic jugs. You're in the middle of a jungle, the plastic just really pissed me off. But it was just and then she wound up never even getting water. But I just was
I agree, because I went to summer camp.
In the wrong direction.
And when we went on our routine expeditions, we weren't taking plastic jugs. First of all, it was still the time where, this was right when Coca-Cola bottles were still in glass, because they would break. They moved to plastic a little bit later on. But we had a canteen, and the water always tasted tinny. So they should have had canteens. I don't know where these plastic jugs came from. So that's an excellent point. Will is smart and stupid at the same time. There are some things he's great on, and others it's just like you just want to smack him.
But if you look at the raft in the beginning, they had a lot of stuff on there. They had a lot of baggage for a routine expedition. And I don't even know what the routine expedition was, but they put a lot of stuff in there. And we don't know. Maybe they found stuff when they got there.
Maybe axes?
What's his name? What's the guy's name in the...
Jefferson?
Yeah. Jefferson Davis, or whatever his name was.
We'll get to his name. Don't worry.
Maybe they found stuff there. Maybe they did come... But listen, I brought up the same thing on our chat last week.
We call that pre-production show business, Mark.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. In pre-production, I did bring up the fact that, Ginger did have an awful lot of ball gowns on a...
I was thinking the same thing.
Which is exactly the same thing. Exactly.
They went on a 3-hour tour also.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
Money and bank stocks.
I just want to tell you that I watched The Real Housewives of New Jersey last night, episode 2 of this season, and they went on like a 3-day trip, and those ladies were packed to the gills with tons and tons of bags and luggage and carries on, whatever. So I didn't find anything about Ginger at all, unusual for a Hollywood starlet to be at least as glamorous as Melissa.
3-hour tour anyway.
Yeah, who go 3-hour tour? Especially with those two boobs in charge of things. By boobs, I mean the skipper and Gilligan, not, boobs. Canceled. Right.
Digress.
Yeah, well, okay. So we also learn here that there is something called, I call them Rickisms. This is when Rick becomes sort of Mike Brady all of a sudden and whips out philosophical lessons, although we will see that Rick is at times, he alternates being extremely useful and extremely useless at the same, sometimes in the same episode. So at first they're wondering if they can keep Chaka, and the first Rickism is, people don't own other people. That's a very poignant lesson in 1974, and it still holds true today and should have held true before as well. But that was beautiful. What do you guys think about this first Rickism?
Well, let me talk about the Rickisms to begin with. The whole tone, everything stops, whether it's the music or whatever. It's almost like the show stops and they go to him, and it's almost like you hear swans singing when he goes into a Rickism, and it's hilarious because it's really that time when, almost like in Davy and Goliath, when the lesson of the episode is learned, or something like that. It really becomes the whole this episode is about this, kids. Let's learn how to treat people better, or how to learn how to, and it's fantastic.
Which was pretty impressive for 20 minutes.
Absolutely, yes. Now, they taught the Paku how to use fire to cook. Fire, by the way, was huta. And apparently this is something the Paku hadn't developed on their own, so the humans already establishing a little noblesse oblige there. So there's a lot of sort of Thanksgiving parallels in this episode because they taught them how to use fire. But at the end, the Paku brought them a whole bunch of fruit and vegetables and left it at the bottom of the high bluff. So it was almost like the Thanksgiving story encapsulated there. But before we get to that, even though I just got to it, we know that Grumpy attacks the high bluff, and they have something called the fly swatter, which is just a long log, I guess, with a pointed edge or whatever, where they use it as a battering ram to get rid of them. And they seem to...
Wait, hang on 1 second. I want to ask a question.
Please.
And I could Google this and find out. I want to know if PETA was around back then, because they take that fly swatter and shove it in his throat, and he's going crazy and with the stick coming out of his mouth.
He gets it out. How does he get it out of his mouth?
I guarantee you, PETA.
But they always had it. Did they let go of it? Did they just?
It in his
it stays in his mouth.
So they have to keep making more.
I guess.
So they have to keep making more of these.
How does he get it out? Does another one come along and go, "Oh, look, you have something in your mouth. I need to pull it."
And why is it called?
The arms are like this. So how does he get?
Why
it
is
out?
it called the fly swatter?
It's a big fly.
It's a stick, though. It's not. It's a pole. It's
Yes.
not even. It's...
I guess they thought that was less violent than calling it the spear or the battering ram.
Yeah.
The trebuchet. I don't know. I guess they could go down and carry the things back up. I also presume that they had some number of them, because there was one episode where one was gone and they needed to get another. So apparently they have a little store of them, which again, how many trees are they cutting? Well, I guess if they have one axe to do it, they can cut more trees. So that answers that.
Branches fall off of a tree too. I mean, I have branches all over.
Well, aren't you special? Well, but these were not branches. These were Tyrannosaurus Rex battering rams. This was not a branch that you pretend is a walking stick when you're 7. I am Gandalf the Great.
Although to spin off on what you just said,
yes,
pretty much everything in that show, especially on the Saturday morning and with the kids bent towards it, is you can recreate it at home. Like you could put something on the hose out front and make a little river with something that's been wrapped. You could sit there and we see later on that slee stacks are not great shots, but you could imitate all of that as a kid, and because the special effects were subpar, you could do it easily and still feel like a great success as a kid.
See, I'm glad you brought up the slee stacks here, because one of the things I was thinking is that the slee stack bolts could have been the nails that they used. However, they didn't know the slee stacks were there yet. Now, it's possible they just found random bolts around and didn't know what they were and said, hey, we can use these as nails, but it's never explored. So I guess that's my working theory, is they found bolts lying around and they used those as the nails to sort of put the wagon and the pulley and things like. But they had a lot of rope for a routine expedition. I mean, unless their routine expedition was climbing Everest. All right, let's get to the second Rickism that I noted in this episode, and this was towards the end, and it was rewarded by what I already spoiled, the Thanksgiving-like end of it. But the second Rickism was, it takes a lot of trust to make a friend. What do you think of that? Erin, you are a child expert here, so what do you think about that?
Well, it's like Mark was saying. You always, although I didn't notice that everything went to a screaming stop when I was watching it when Rick talks, but it's so true. Every time he says something, that's your Saturday morning lesson.
It is. Sharon, you're also an expert on children, so why don't you go weigh in on this?
What I have to say is I feel like Rick is a hypocrite because he might have these morals, but I feel like how he treats people, he yells a lot. He really has anger issues. Like in episode 6, and even when they're trying to talk to the other, what are they called? The Paku, I forgot their names.
That's right.
Right?
Paku,
So they're teaching them how to harvest food.
Yeah.
They don't know how, I don't know. I just feel like that whole thing didn't make sense. They don't know how to get their own food. But anyway, I just feel like he yells a lot. He's got a lot of anger. And so here he is trying to have these morals sounds kind of like do as I say, not as I do. I don't know that I really pay attention to his morals, because I don't really care for his parenting style at all.
Well, in a little fairness to Rick, he did lose his wife at some point where we're not sure about. And he was in a dinosaur land with two, a teenager and a preteen. So his energy and patience was probably worn thin. However, I do agree, his behavior is very inconsistent, and we're definitely going to get into, he's nonviolent at times, but then he adopts violence. He's heroic at times, then he's cowardly. He's useful at times, then he's useless. I'm going to get to you in a second, Mark, but there's something, because I'm going to forget this if I don't. If you look at him, the casting of him is actually perfect based on what Sharon says, because he's sort of like if John Wayne and Mike Brady had a son. He's sort of big and gruff and broad, but he's also got that hippie look and that tone of Mike Brady. So he very much is the perfect casting for that person that you're talking about, that is a hypocrite that's, sometimes good and sometimes not good. He's like Jekyll and Hyde in one. Mark.
I don't know if I misheard, and I just want to clarify this for everyone listening. Sharon, you were talking about Rick, not Will, correct?
Yes.
The dad, not the, okay. I thought I heard Will, and that's when I started to get confused. But I just wanted to make sure we were talking about the dad.
Oh, okay.
Because he also has this.
Will's another story.
This anger, sometimes you look at him and he's all you can see the anger, he grunts his face and stuff, and maybe he's just angry that he lost his wife, or maybe he's angry that he fell into a portal, or maybe he's maybe he hates his kids. I'm not sure, but there's definitely some anger there.
He's got a few elements.
I ended up taking it as being on death duty constantly. I mean, any mom who's had toddlers, running around in an environment that's not tremendously safe, you're a little on edge walking around, and especially with attention deficit Holly, running around and taking off. It came off to me as just unconstant panic.
Well, that is a perfect segue into episode 2, which is entitled The Sleestack God, which starts with basically Holly arguing that she can take care of herself, which, I mean, Holly's probably, 10, 11 or so in this show, somewhere in that neighborhood?
She's 12.
12, okay. Either way, she shouldn't be taking care of herself in Dinosaur Land. Even though these are some of the least effective dinosaurs of all time. I mean, I know dinosaurs weren't smart, but they had good hunting instincts. So this episode is mostly surrounded around the kids are tasked with getting water. We already touched on where they got plastic jugs from, etc. They take a shortcut to water because they don't want to take the long cut, which apparently is safer, which I don't know how they know what's safer and more dangerous. But it leads to ancient temple ruins. And there's a chasm, and there's a rock bridge there. And Holly makes a big deal out of being afraid of heights, and Will sort of, makes fun of her and sort of shames her into crossing. Holly tosses a rock over the chasm and says, yuck.
Yuck.
I have no idea why. It didn't land in dinosaur poo or something like that. She just says yuck. And I don't know why this stuck with me, but it led to absolutely nothing. I mean, so anyone have any ideas as to what yuck? Nope, no one. All right, good. We then see an Allosaurus, and I note this because an Allosaurus didn't live within tens of millions of years of the Tyrannosaurus, right, Sharon? You have to speak. This is radio.
Yes, it's true.
Okay. So then I had to remind myself, not Earth, Jeff, not Earth. So they get to
They've never called it that again.
The Allosaurus?
Yeah.
Well, they named her Alice.
Well, they called it Alice.
Right.
Alice.
Oh, right, because it was a girl.
Allosaurus is a very long word, so they needed to shorten it to...
Mark, it was a woman. You're a Hollywood guy. You're supposed to be left. Is it Hollywood people are immune to this kind of stuff? Is it just the rest of us that have to play by your rules?
Yeah.
Is it us flyover people like New Yorkers and Hollywooders can still use the word girl? Woman. We are woke here. Okay? We are so woke that we need a nap. All right. So the Lost City. So we've got we've got 3 entrances. There's cobblestones. We've got Stonehenge-like arches. There's like a sundial above it. Well, sort of like inscriptions. I want to say bas relief, but it's the opposite. It's basically cut inside. You've got like a sun. The parent. So Will and Rick are using mirrors to communicate from long distances. How they're always in sight lines when there's a jungle canopy there, I don't know. Details, schmetails. But they use Morse code. Again, the Rick being a park ranger and Will being a Boy Scout comes in handy here. Holly, I guess, is a trainee. I noticed right away that there was oxidized sand. It's probably just what was there, maybe just left over from Star Trek. But of course, at the time, I was only on episode 2, and I was thinking, nuclear explosion, radiation. We learned that there's a Triceratops who, in this episode, was called Amanda. Later on, named Spike. So I don't, so I guess the whole concept of gender being fluid was started with the Land of the Lost, perhaps, with a Triceratops. But
that scene though, when they keep coming back to the same place, talking about the footsteps. It's the same spot, the same backing, the same little plant in the front to make it look like it's real. That was pretty classic too, and just almost like Flintstones when they're driving and the same things goes by and that same thing over and over again.
Yeah, so this whole world is a circle. Now, Chaka at some point breaks his little leg, and they give him a splint.
Foreshadowing right there.
That's right.
The whole world is a circle.
That's right. They build the splint for him, and they tie it with 3 bandanas. And when they run into Chaka, which must be a few days or a few weeks later, even though it seems like it's only minutes later, and he seems healed, they just cut the bandanas off because they're never going to possibly need those bandanas again. Like there's
they got the bandana factory.
They've got the bandana factory right there. We learned that water is Usu. Or Osu. I spelt it as O-O-S-U. That's not necessary. That's just phonetics. We also see cave writings, and in English it says clear as day, beware of Sleestak. Nobody cares. Nobody cares that it's in English. Nobody's wondering who wrote that in English. Who was here before us?
Who wrote that?
Well, clearly Jefferson Davis did.
Oh my God, that was so funny. But he didn't, because when he came out, he didn't even know that world existed. So he did not. Yeah.
And he didn't call them Sleestaks.
Exactly.
He called them Yankees. he thought he was still fighting the Civil War with the reptile people, which maybe is the basis of QAnon. So who knows? I mean, a lot of things come in a Land of the Lost, Garden of Doom, gender fluidity, QAnon, me being canceled. So the whole English thing, Support for a Dream. Now here is where Snarky Jeff wrote Rupestrian. And then in pre-production, I admitted to these folks, I forgot what Rupestrian means. So we looked it up, and it means inscribed in rock. So Rupestrian. I sometimes do a word of the day segment. I was delaying that for this show, but I'm sneaking it in here anyway. So we learn from Paku English that's Sira Sastaka, which then goes to the reptile people. We see the bas reliefs in the temple, and they're called Sleestaks. Now, the Sleestaks, they have equipment belts. They have, like, prison nets a la, like, Planet of the Apes. They have wood pallets. It's not like they are absent technology and tools. So this, to me, is very confusing. What did you guys think? Sharon, let's start with you, because you are you're our scientist. I know you're not a scientist, but you're our scientist. And you're also a perma-ecologist, which means that you should tell us how species can survive and adapt in very varying ecologies.
Okay, I'm going to say you're giving way too much credit.
You're an expert.
I don't think
we're going to edit that out. Sharon's an expert.
I think I'm not understanding understanding what you're asking me.
How did the Sleestaks have equipment belts and nets and wood pallets when they're supposedly more or less unthinking beasts?
Am I allowed to go ahead in episodes or no?
Sure. This
because we find out that they already came from a sophisticated, that they de-evolved from a sophisticated, society.
Society, yes.
That they already were evolved, and then they somehow they de-evolved.
So the
I don't even understand that whole storyline,
well,
right? Like, how does a species de-evolve?
So, well, I mean, the Morlocks were done in the Time Machine. This is not news. I mean, it may be a parable for the human race that as violent as we remain, we get bigger and bigger weapons. I mean, maybe going from swords and clubs to nuclear weapons is a de-evolution that, someone in 10,000 years will look at us and say, wow, this is deep. I would like to know why only like the tools of hunting and trapping survived. Sharon, again, this is audio, so you can't just make faces. You have to say something. You have to make noise.
If you want to talk about my expertise, I say because that's what the writers wrote.
Nice.
That's the only thing I can offer. I can't give any scientific explanation to this.
All right, we're going to move on from that because that's going to have to do. So they go into the caverns in the inner city, and we find a smoky vat, which is sort of like methane, CO2, maybe it's carbon monoxide. We learn that the lost city is guarded by the Allosaurus named Alice. The gas smells awful, so then I wrote down maybe sulfur, again methane. The Sleestaks definitely are fire sensitive and bright light sensitive, but this is not exactly consistent either. The gas does not light on fire though, but we do later on see that it can amplify light, but it doesn't catch on fire, it doesn't explode. Now,
are you talking about when they were hanging over in the net and the?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Yep. In the lost city, which the Sleestaks, I guess, call home. The fire causes the gas to glow brighter in the short term, and then we learn that the Sleestaks have this bright light sensitivity.
Jeff.
Yeah.
So we really learn at that point, and I guess maybe it's not too linear for me, that I thought at first when I watched it that they were afraid of fire. Holly's the first person that says later on that they're afraid of light.
Yep.
So is there ever a time where we learn that they're actually afraid of light and not fire?
I don't know. Maybe just them.
Not really, because don't they go out in the daytime?
They do.
It's very convenient for them to be afraid of light.
So that's why right?
Yes, and we're going to explore that when we get to that episode. Now, the dummy that I am wrote, "Where's the Sleestak God?" I didn't realize that the Sleestak God was in that pit under that wall of mist that was down there. But apparently the Sleestak God lives down there, and we'll find out more about that later.
I feel like you hear at the end of something, don't you hear? Do they? I forgot what the episode was, but isn't there some kind of like explosion or something, and then don't you hear like so there is something in there.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was the Sleestak God. I thought that was just maybe prisoners or something. No, you were right. That's why I predicated by dummy, because that's me. I was the dummy. I didn't realize that.
Oh, I didn't know that it was a god.
Well, it's the Sleestak God. Doesn't make it a god. It just means that it's this.
Oh, and then they were sacrifices. Okay, actually now that makes sense.
We're learning together. That's what we're supposed to do. So the Paku at this point decide that they're, I guess, friendly enough, and instead of handshake, like the humans put their hands out to shake, and the Paku kiss the hand instead of shaking it, but that will have to do for now, obviously pre-COVID. Little fun fact here, 2 fun facts. Mark pointed this one out in pre-production. They only made 3 Sleestak costumes for the green Sleestaks. So that's why we never see more than 3 of them at a time. 2, that ex-NBA players were cast to be the Sleestaks because they wanted them to be tall and lanky. So that's pretty cool. And there was actually a linguist hired to create the language of the Paku, which is very consistent with the Star Trek mantra, because, I mean, there's people who actually speak Klingon, and to my knowledge, there are no actual Klingons out there, but there is a language. So maybe language creates people into people. Anyway, episode 3 is dopey. They have a... Yes?
I have a problem with the name Dopey. That really bothered me.
Oh, but that's
why are they naming it Dopey? That's so mean.
Because look at him, he looks dopey. But that's 1974. We were allowed to name people dopey back then.
It's interesting you call him Dopey, and we're going to get back to that very quickly. You know, back to my original thing, and I know that we've already answered this, but they have a wagon built with wheels. Who is the carpenter and engineer? Who has been cutting?
Flintstones.
Who's been making wheels? Who's been making wheels out of stone? Now, we know that the stone isn't that strong because one of them cracks like a wheel cheese when it hits another rock. So maybe it's sandstone?
I don't know if you saw this. They make a point when they can't move the wagon, they make a point of showing a close-up of like a stone, like chalking the wheels. So the cart's never going to move. I don't know what's the point of showing that. It's almost like it's not that the cart is heavy. It's that, oh, right, it's stuck on a rock and they can't figure that out.
Right, they can't move that rock.
No.
Right. And where are they bringing it anyway?
To collect food.
Their big carrots and their turnips.
Right. And the rope. Again, more rope.
Fruits and vegetables.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a healthy diet. Remember, not Earth. There may be proteins in these fruits and vegetables and all sorts of nourishment. So the kids find a hatched egg. And at this point, we also see many times we see like 3 flying pterodactyls or whatever, and they make sounds like they're birds, like raptors. But they're not. They call them gliders, and then they give them the name tryons. And through episode 9, that word is never mentioned again. Mm-hmm. So this is just something that bothered me. So, all right. So Dopey comes out, and there's giant berries, and there's giant carrots. And these boobs, again, using the word boob as fools, keep leaving the food unguarded on the wagon. And they keep wondering why it's disappearing. I mean, they've got a baby dinosaur right there. There's other dinosaurs. They've got the Pakuni, who are basically scavengers. And even if they're the greatest farmers in the world, it's easier to take food that's been harvested than to build your own. So, I mean, whose fault is this? We know that there's a Brontosaurus there. Now, there's no such thing as a Brontosaurus anymore. Apparently, they renamed them Patasaurus. Is that correct, scientist Sharon? Dr. Pessnar? Yes, it is. Thank you for confirming that with a nod. So right now we get a Rickism, and this is an important one. We're in another world, in a universe where all lost things congregate. So that's deep. He figures that out right away. Holly, to her credit, says something that's insightful and very consistent with what a kid would say. I wonder if my lost toys will be here. Okay. We also get a Willism, which comes out every now and then. And he says, yes.
You looked in the laundry.
Say that again?
All the socks that were lost in the laundry.
That's exactly right.
That was really funny. Where did they go?
Right. Socks. And also those little things that hold shelves in like kitchen cabinets and whatever, that when you lose one, they're gone forever. And when you had all 4, there's like 3 of them sitting loose on top of the shelf, and they're gone too. I need to consult with Michael Dyson on that, or no, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Michael Dyson is the actor from Skynet. Sorry, I get my scientist and fake scientist confused. So his first Willism, it's the law of the jungle. By the way, this episode 3 is when we first learn that High Bluff is home base, the home cave. Another Willism, referring to Dopey. He'll eat everything. Will has figured that out right away. And he says the problem isn't keeping him. The problem is getting rid of him. Now, Will is a dick when it comes to Dopey. Now, I don't know if he's jealous about the attention. I don't know if he's really worried about the food. I don't know if he's just sort of scared of dinosaurs. I don't know if it's just part of him egging on Holly because she loves Dopey. Maybe Dopey is sort of the replacement for Comanche or her horse. I don't know, but Will is consistently a dick when it comes to Dopey. What's everyone's thoughts on that?
I don't know, actually, to be honest with you. He did seem very against having Dopey around, but I don't know if there was any really rationale for it. Right. Dinosaurs come and go to their cave all the time. Who cares if there's a little baby pet Dopey there?
Well, Sharon, you're a mother of children that have gone through this age. What's your opinions on these subjects?
It's funny that you say that, because when I was watching this episode, when she wanted to keep Dopey and she was trying to train it and everything, and it reminded me of me, actually, not my kids when I was that age. I found kittens and I brought them home and I wanted to keep them, and they ran away, and I only wanted a puppy dog, and I loved animals, and I felt very connected to Holly in this one. And you know what? My sister was older and she was just a bitch. You know what I mean? And I kind of feel like, at that time, not anymore. Okay. But you know what I mean? And I do feel like there's like this sibling rivalry and like jealousy of attention. And who knows? Sometimes it's just to go against what your sibling, your sibling likes this. I don't want it. So I don't know that there's it could just be a sibling rivalry thing.
Yeah, I actually found that the dialogue between the kids was far more realistic than most dialogue between kids in TV was. I mean, maybe subtract 4 or 5 years from their age, but it worked for the show. So Dopey is being trained by Holly. We have Rocky III kind of training sequences where Holly is training Dopey. She's teaching him to play fetch, sort of. He eats the stick as often as he returns the stick. Now, I noticed something here which is part of Rick's inconsistency. So Pacu can't be owned because people don't own other people. Now, yes, the Paco is humanoid in appearance, but the only thing that really separated the Pacu from animals is that the Pacu seem to understand language and have a language of its own. Dopey seemed to understand English pretty well, even as a baby. I mean, Dopey seems to understand what Holly's saying.
I feel like Dopey's more like a pet. We adopt pets. That's how I looked at Dopey more.
I get it, but if
she trained it to pull the cart, which I thought was very useful.
It is very useful, and Dopey is big, and that is useful, and that's fine. But Dopey seemed to understand English, which indicates intelligence to me. And just because Dopey didn't necessarily have a language, or at least one that the marshals could understand, I found this to be a sign of inconsistency as well, because they're in a different world. So it seemed to be like a form of mammalism, kind of thing. I took offense to this because Dopey was, the name Dopey's offensive because Dopey really wasn't Dopey, just hungry. Should have named him Hungry.
I felt that. I didn't feel like Dopey was Dopey. But to me personally, Chaka and Dopey, I don't feel like that they ever would have owned them. Like, to me, if Chaka was with them, to me, I always looked at them as that if they were allowed to stay with them, then they would all be members of a family and they would all be part of a community, and then they all would be there to help each other, and they would all have different skills to actually help and support each other. And it's like, safety in numbers. So to me, to push people away from you when you're in a land that you don't know, and Chaka clearly lives there, and so does Dopey. It would have been to their benefit to keep them in their tribe and not have ownership over any of them. That's my own personal opinion.
I agree. They should have tried to build around, though. I will say this is only episode 3, although we have no idea how long they've been there. It's very unclear, and it's never addressed. And again, different things grow at different paces here. But I understand not being exactly ready to let, a furry animal into, even if it's hominid and has a language, into my home. I mean, you don't know all of its traits. I think that the little cautious study was prudent. I mean, for all you know, at night they eat you, so,
What would you say? They would eat you at night? Is that what you said?
At night, maybe they would eat you. I mean, if they got hungry, maybe all of a sudden they would attack you. I mean, there are feral beasts out there who we don't know. But what you just said, the longer the show goes on, the more apropos it becomes. Excuse me. So we then see that the moon has a crescent phase. English, which I found to be interesting. I don't know exactly why, and I don't know why only one of them had a crescent phase, not all 3. Emily, because crescent phases are because of shadows from the sun and anyway, it doesn't matter.
I can't answer that question.
Okay, yes, Sharon.
What?
Well, let's hear it.
It had to do with the of wherever you are. So if you're on the Earth, and then it has to do with the position of the Earth position of the Moon in relation to the Earth and the Sun. So the Moon revolves around the Earth. It's going to go through different phases because the light from the Sun is striking it at different angles as we see from Earth.
So those moons, they're not as close together as they seem, and the Sun, which we never see as far as I can recall, was at a particular angle to only cast a shadow on that one moon.
I can't say I really pay attention to the moons.
Okay.
Now I have to look, so I don't know. I'm sorry.
Right. We're looking at it. I told you we're going deep. I told you this.
I know. I'm sorry.
All right. So what they decide to do with Dopey is to basically force an adoption with Emily in the swamp. And we also learned that they come from California and that they had homemade ice cream and strawberry patches. So clearly they're well-to-do hippies, and, it makes sense why gardening is something that comes natural to them, and how they're sort of do-it-yourselfers. So, the world building actually makes sense. These things that seem trivial, they all tie into how they're surviving. So anybody have anything else on that?
I think you kind of nailed that very succinctly.
Thank you, Mark. Can I get a job in Hollywood with you?
Sure.
Can I get your coffee and carry your bags and stuff?
If I could become a professional wrestler.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can help each other.
We can be DoorDash being delivered right now. My son just ordered DoorDash.
You can, okay, well, that's fine. You can take a break while we talk about Dopey, because Dopey finds himself in a net, and it puts all of them in danger, and it attracts Grumpy. Will, again, is being a dick, basically saying that Dopey can be Grumpy's meal because he doesn't care. And Holly decides to shoo Dopey away, and apparently Dopey just walks out of the net as if it wasn't really a problem. The net wasn't the problem, Dopey was the problem. And Dopey seems to inherently know that Grumpy has no real interest in eating Dopey, because this repeats itself from time to time. Even though Grumpy does eat, we see Grumpy eating and killing things, and Alice as well. But Holly shoos him away, and she's, being mean to him. But Dopey, to his credit, I think realizes that she's doing it on purpose, but Dopey does reluctantly go to the swamp. And it doesn't seem like Emily is taking on Dopey like Mom and Pup, but Emily seems to be like non-bothered that Dopey's going to share her little place in the swamp with her. So that's how we end that episode. Anybody have anything to add that I missed to that?
I have opinions about Grumpy.
Please.
I feel like the Grumpy in the show just never catches them, and the Grumpy in the show, like how you brought up Spielberg, very different than the Grumpy that's in Jurassic Park, who ate lots of humans in that movie. So I was just always like, how come he never catches them? So I kind of feel like Grumpy is more Dopey.
Grumpy is pretty dopey. Grumpy is pretty dopey.
I think Dopey is just he looks dopey to me. As much as we don't like to use call somebody dopey.
Yeah.
He just seems
very
like
sweet.
Yeah.
I would keep them.
Yeah, I call him hungry maybe. I don't know. But, Dopey's fine. I don't know why it's so bad to call him Dopey. All right, so the fourth episode is called Downstream, and this is where things start to go really deep. So the show opens with the kids, Will and Holly, building a raft. And the raft is anchored to a pylon, which the pylons, still to our knowledge, are very mysterious, strange objects that they just seem to take in as being normal, that there should be glowing, noise-emitting, machine-like obelisks in the middle of this land. And they decide this is a good place to anchor the raft they're building so that it doesn't, be blown away or whatever the case may be. So they're going to build this raft because there's a river, and they figure the river is a path to get them out of here. They figure that rivers lead to oceans, which, rivers do lead to oceans, and they should know that as Boy Scouts and Rangers. Now we get a Rickism, which is very deep, and he said, cities tend to be at the forks of rivers. That's where people live. And then Will, to his credit, says, yeah, but what kind of people? He's right. They're in the land of the lost. What kind of people? They haven't really, they've met the Pakuni, which are sort of friendly, but really only one of them. And they've met the Sleestaks, who are anything but friendly.
But in all fairness, rivers lead to oceans where we live in our world, or our land. We don't know that rivers lead to oceans in their land.
That's a very good point. Yeah, they were very much operating from an Earth-centric science. It's a good thing we have an Earth science teacher here. What do you say about that, Dr. Pessnar? Professor Pessnar?
Oh, now you're a professor. I love it.
Tenured. You've been tenured by Garden of Doom.
I actually really like what Marc just said, that, on Earth, rivers, are always going to lead to a bigger body of water, and then, but exactly, like they're still not recognizing that they're not necessarily on Earth anymore, that their whole mindset needs to be something different. But by the end of this, well, whatever, sorry, jump ahead.
Well, let's skip ahead a little bit to what is probably the worst part of this episode, but the most accurate. Holly is spending an inordinate amount of energy complaining about having to wear a life vest, even though that probably saved her life on the original expedition, and they are going to an ocean, which
they think they are.
Yeah, presumably would have deeper water and colder water and other beasts in the water and rougher water, and I don't know what this is all about, but she eventually succumbs to it. But this discussion is much shorter than the amount of time she spends complaining about the life vest.
And being stereotypical.
Yeah, yeah.
Teenage girl.
And it was just odd. It was just a sign of whatever those writers seemed to think that a teenage girl would do. Anyway, they bid goodbye to the dinosaurs as they pass them one by one. Bon voyage, and goodbye, Dopey, goodbye, Spot, goodbye, Grumpy. Grumpy does not seem to be interested in eating them. They're really not that far away. And for people who are very, very prepared, they only have one pole for this ocean voyage, which seems to me to be very ill-equipped unless you're only in a swamp. Even a river, one pole doesn't seem to be a very good idea. And Will is the waterman, and Rick is lounging there for what seems to be a very long amount of time, again, being rather useless in this particular scene. So this is a strange river. There's a green tinge. We hear a waterfall. So they're in a cavern, and they hear the waterfall, and they see there's a cave or an incropping in the side of the wall. And all of a sudden, Rick is very brave. He sacrifices himself. He goes right into the drink. He grabs onto the raft. He's holding on to the cave. He's anchoring it so that the kids can get into the tunnel. And he's like a good dad here. And then he gets pulled into the cave. They're worried that he's not going to make it. Daddy, 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 come on, daddy, come on, daddy. And they grab him in here.
But the acting definitely was up. That was a very dramatic scene. I was biting my nails in that scene. Is he going to make it? What's going to happen to Dad?
Yes. Kudos to my co-host, a Hammerlock Hangover, for this one. But chef's kiss to the director on this one. Mark, you could see if they're still alive and hire them for one of your joints. At this point, I realized that Rick has a lot of bad ideas.
A lot of bad what?
Bad ideas. Rick has a lot of bad ideas.
Yeah.
We then hear muffled Dixieland, and they keep walking. They're following the song. Someone's singing Dixieland, and we come to a miner who's working a claim. He's next to an old-timey cannon. We see colored light minerals inset into the cave walls. Later on, we learn that they are the crystals, so we'll call them the crystals from this point on, unless they refer to them as something else. And he asks, "Are you from the Union?" And they say, "We're from California." And he's like, "Well, that explains. There's something smarmy like that."
And we said California didn't exist yet.
Well, it existed,
but not even a state, which actually wasn't true.
Well, it was a territory. It wasn't a state, but there was the 1849. The 49ers.
1850.
Yeah, well, the 49ers, the Gold Rush 49. So the Civil War was 1863. 1867. So a little history lesson to you Garden of Doom listeners out there. The cannon is not an antique. He got very offended by them referring to the cannon as an antique. And the cannon, in fact, is a lady, and the lady's name is Sarah. what we learn from him is that the river doesn't end. It just goes underground. So what Mark was saying earlier about the Earth didn't necessarily apply to the Earth, but it does apply to this land. It just goes underground. So that insists that our character, who is now introduced to us or introduces himself as Jefferson Davis Colley III, a loyal Confederate and a fair man, he must have tried this river before. He must have tried to escape at some point and realizes it goes underground. And his only companion is fair Sarah the Cannon. He's working these crystals as his claims, and Holly's walking around. She finds Sleestack bones. So my first thought was, like, are they dinner? Like, is that going to be what their dinner is from now on? I've been talking a while, so Sharon, why don't you give us your impressions of this episode?
So this episode, I actually texted you and I said I felt like I was watching theater more than a TV show. I felt like the way that it was acted just reminded me of that. That has nothing to do with anything, but I don't know.
Yes, it does. It has everything to do with everything.
Okay.
This is a retrospective.
Yeah. And I thought that he was really good in his part. Like, I really liked his character. And I actually also felt like they weren't like, yay, another human being. How did you get here? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I felt like that would have been my first reaction. Like, oh my God, human, like anything. Even like how you were saying with the writing on the wall. Like, there's evidence of, like, it was just like this disconnect.
They didn't even ask, did you write Beware of Sleestack?
Where'd you come from?
I know, exactly. Like,
how'd you get here?
Exactly. So, I also was amazed at the amount of matches that he had for 130 years. He really was very frivolous with lighting his matches and stuff, and I was like, wow, you have a lot of ammunition and matches there. So, I don't know, like, I don't know what else, I don't when you ask questions.
Well, we've got Mark. It's fine.
I feel like this episode was almost a standalone. It doesn't really fall suit with the rest of the series. I feel like it's a standalone episode that somebody wrote for whatever I don't know what purpose. Like we said, where'd you come from? How'd you get here?
Yeah. And at the end, he's like, I don't like being here. I'm going to go back into my cave. And it's like, there's never like, well, let's all try and figure out how to get out of here.
Like I said, it just doesn't really follow suit or make sense to the rest of the rest of the series, really.
See, again, I disagree, but I'm going to get to it. Though and this sort of goes into my theory that they may be alone here. This may be, and I'm not even sure it's they're alone. It may be one of them that's alone there, but we'll explore these things a little bit later on. So,
and I felt like the power of the crystals gets introduced here, that there are these crystals and clearly they have these magical powers, which kind of reminded me of the Infinity Stones when I was watching, when I was saying how like there was some things that reminded me of Marvel, but it was like, again, like they have these magic crystals that have this magic energy, and it's like they don't take it and harvest it and utilize it. Like they find this cave and then they walk away from it, and like, I don't know, and then they go on with their life like it was before. Like it was.
They don't exploit the things in front of them, except for Dopey.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And like you said, the timeline of it all is very curious. What happened the episode before doesn't really. It's almost like, not that they don't learn from it, but it's never brought up again, or it's never discussed. Dopey is. But every once in a while, you just come across these episodes that are just sort of like, interesting. Who wrote that one? Or did they read the rest of? Did they read the rest of the episodes before they wrote this one? I'm not sure.
Well, I think there are a few important things about this episode. I'm going to get to some of them now. So Will points out that maybe the stones power the time portal, and he also posits maybe they're radioactive, which of course I wrote a few times about radioactive in the past and future. Spoiler alert, up through episode 9, radioactivity doesn't really play much of a role into this, if any. We do get a Rickism, and I never want to miss a Rickism. Don't tell him who won the Civil War. Probably not. Probably good advice. That was probably a good thing for Rick to say. Holly points out that the Sleestaks don't like the light. So she's the one who realized that, which is, I guess a reverse anti-Spielberg ploy there. Holly actually is strangely intuitive, so all the times they want her to stay home, I understand that she's 11 or 12 and maybe physically the weakest, but she seems to pick up on things that they don't. She's sort of like their spider sense, and I think that they should encourage her to come, and they should just...
Am I allowed to say she's a woman?
Yes, of course you're allowed to say she's a woman. And if they're worried about her safety... Yeah, but if they're truly worried about her safety... Rick, stop sending the kids off on their own. Go with them. You be in the front. Put Hattie behind you. Put Will behind her. And then, and maybe take some of those fly swatters with you and then not just walk around aimlessly. All right. Aside from that, Jefferson does start to teach them some of the tricks of the crystals. He doesn't know them all, even though he's been there 130 years, but he does teach them that if you use the crystals in certain ways, they have powers. They have usefulness. So that's important. We see that dinner is a giant fish, so I guess he didn't eat the Sleestaks, though it's not dispositive on that. They say it tastes like lobster, which, I'm in. As far as I think I already mentioned this, but he thinks the Sleestaks are Yankees, and he points out that he shot 3. Rick knows that the Sleestaks have crossbows, and I guess that's dangerous. And then the Sleestaks attack, but they're terrible shots, as we know, to the cannon. So Holly, instead of shooting them with the cannon, just scares them off, which seems sort of stupid. And then he has his rebel yell. Maybe he likes them, which is another reason why I think maybe it's a dream or he's not really there. But better listen when old Sarah talks. That's my old-timey Southerner claims miner kind of prospector accent. How do you do?
You did bring up the mushrooms, though.
Oh, yes, we're getting to that. I want to know from Mark, though, how did I do with my prospector Civil War veteran accent? Like, could I be in the Hateful Eight?
Yes, with some voice coaching, but you're almost there.
Yeah, I would be unnamed Thug 7 who gets shot in the back without a line. Perfect. Yeah, that's all I want out of life is to be unnamed henchman. That's my opus. All right, so
Woman from high school.
What's that?
I'm woman from high school. You're going to do my bio.
Are you introducing yourself as woman from high school?
No, you were saying that you were like, I'd like to not introduce you as woman from high school.
Yes.
I didn't know that we were doing this. I didn't know what we were doing, so I didn't know what I was signing myself up for.
Talk about disjointed dialogue. This yes. When I asked everyone for a bio, Sharon sent me several messages on what do you want from a bio. I'm like, I don't know anything, so I can not say woman from high school. I'm sure you've done things since then. And then she's like, oh yeah, I'm a docent at a museum. I was an earth science teacher for a decade. I'm a student of permafrost Neanderthal savings technology. It's like, yeah, some of those things. By the way, folks, we have 2 University of Wisconsin-Madison. We have 2 Badgers here. So I had no idea. I'm sure at some point I realized that there were 2 Badgers here. I, of course, am an Emory Eagle, so I feel superior to them. Now, they're both more successful than me, so who had the last laugh? Them. But listeners...
You're a big-time Baltimore attorney. What are you talking about?
I was a big-time Baltimore attorney. I am very much not big-time now, and I'm much happier for it. But that's a story for another day, and probably not on this show, but probably eventually. All right. So anyway, Jefferson puts them to work. So they're going to work his claim, and so it's basically work for food kind of situation. We find out he's been there over 100 years, and Holly is thirsty, which makes sense. So he gives her funny mushrooms and fish juice, and she doesn't want that. We find out that the funny mushrooms have chemicals, and they can alter a head, which, again, sort of supports is this whole thing a drug trip kind of deal. She's like, I don't want this mushroom fish juice. I want water, which is perfectly normal. So Collie points out that he's out of ammunition. He's got to go make more. Off he goes. And I guess the inference is he's also going to get water during this trip. Well, Rick doesn't trust Collie, which really probably isn't the dumbest thing he's done this episode, let alone this series. And they slink off following Collie in the dark. Holly, her spider sense is tingling. Turns out she's right. They're followed by a Sleestak. They unite the crystals, and the Sleestaks are blinded. They jump into the river because apparently water is a safe place in this world, because there's definitely no plesiosaurs or alligators or crocodiles. Yeah, they can stand in it. Whatever water they jump in, water is their safe place. It's like when you play tag, water is base, no matter what the water is. Yep.
We keep talking about Jefferson being there for 130 years,
mm-hmm.
but we never really touched upon what. So do you get there when you get there, you don't age, or when
they do say that. They do bring that up.
Oh, I think I missed that then.
They do acknowledge that. They're like, don't tell them. I feel like
no, definitely. Time works differently there. I mean, we know that the carrots and the turnips grow very quickly. We know that the weeds grow very quickly. We know that Dopey doesn't grow. We know that they don't grow. So it looks like Chaka doesn't grow. So time moves, but not for everybody and not equally. So, this is definitely something that happens. But, again, we're going to have to, hopefully we'll learn more later. But time is definitely part of this show, but time doesn't work exactly consistently in this land of the lost. So the Sleestaks are blinded. They go to the river to swim. And I point out these are the worst crossbows ever. It's not just their aim, it's just that the bolts go about 4 feet and fall down. The yellow crystals do not last long, but if you combine the crystals and toss them, it's like a flash grenade. So they learn that little trick as well. It was night, and then all of a sudden it's daylight. They're back in the river, and then they're back in the swamp. We see the dinosaurs in reverse order of the goodbyes. They don't realize anything until they're back at the pylon and Dopey's there and they realize that they circled back. And then we get a Rickism because the light bulb went over his head and he goes, "It's a closed universe. It's like a locked room in space." Whoa. I actually have a gif of me going like this. Whoa. So do that one. So I'm wondering here, are they in purgatory? Is this like Lost, the show Lost? Mark, you're a Hollywood insider. That was purgatory, right?
Probably yes. I was not a Lost watcher. I know about it and I've seen a bunch of episodes, but yes, I believe it was.
Okay, there we go. So I'm wondering if this is sort of like a purgatory. And then Kali goes basically, as Sharon pointed out earlier, he's like, I'm just going to go back to my cave. And they're like, all right, cool.
I'm out here. He's just like, go back.
Yeah, they're like, peace out. And we don't see him again. Okay, so this was world building. So we learned about the closed universe, we learned about the funniness of time, and we supported the funniness of time, and we learned about the crystals have properties and tools that can be harnessed. So this was not a throwaway episode by any means. Episode 5, tag team, maybe a little bit more of a throwaway, at least with world building, but there was character building here. There was storytelling building. So tag team, we open with Dopey pulling the card again, Dopey being treated like an animal, although Dopey clearly understands English. And we get a Rickism. I don't think making Dopey work is going to work out. Now, at first, I think that maybe this is him being moral Rick and realizing that intelligent species shouldn't be treated like this. But no, it's just like Dopey's not a very good worker and you can't really train Dopey very well. So I know that this bothers Sharon, so we're going to turn to you on the Dopey thing. Okay, Mark.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Actually, I have a question. Those texts that you just exchanged, how many tens of millions of dollars were involved in that text?
Maybe just one.
1 tens of million? Okay. All right, that's good. Good work. Hopefully plus. So basically, they're going to fire Dopey, and Will is a dick about it to his sister again. Okay. So now we're talking about meals because, people are hungry. Carrots and turnips, not again. Holly is not happy. And Rick says it's better than starving. I don't even call that a Rickism. That's just facts.
That's just life.
That's just life. Exactly right. So they turn around. The carrot is gone. The dummies left the cart unguarded again. See, I didn't use the word boobs. Oh, no, there I go. So they left it unguarded again. And then they find a turnip, and they leave it unguarded again. They are so stupid. Turns out that the Paku are taking the food. It's not Dopey this time. The marshals give chase. Dopey is being chased by Grumpy. Rick seems nonviolent. He does not want to get into a tussle with the Pacu. So it seems like he embraces nonviolence here. So everybody flees Grumpy, including the Pacuni. So we got
yelling at them.
right. We got Marshall, Will, and Holly. I'm sorry, Rick, Will, and Holly. Friggin' song. We can curse on the show, by the way. Fucking song threw me off right from word one. I'm still bothered by it, obviously. And then we've got Chaka and the two, as far as I know, unnamed other Pacuni, who I assume are his older siblings, but I'm not sure about that yet. Anyway, so they're all running from Grumpy. They split up. The respective species going in, one goes right, the other goes left. Grumpy can't decide where to go, so instead he stands in the middle and roars. So that's pretty effective. Chaka, I was wrong. Chaka was with his human friends, but then he goes to join the Pacuni, and Grumpy gives chase over Chaka. And he's getting dangerously close, so the human kids are to the rescue to try to distract Grumpy and get Grumpy to go back to them. So both groups realize they're better together, so they alternate the strategy of yelling at Grumpy and distracting him, where I realize that Grumpy is really easily distracted from eating. Maybe he just wants to play, I don't know, or he's just that dumb, or he's very attracted to noise and not his hunger. What I also notice in this whole thing is that Rick is hiding behind the rock the entire time, being extraordinarily useless. So this is where I realize that Rick alternates between being heroic and useless at times. Some episodes are full of substance where some are more about relationships. This was definitely a relationship one, but it turns out that the splitting up strategy worked twice. It was paralysis by analysis for Grumpy. Analysis for Grumpy is very simple. It's basically get frustrated, roar, and give up.
Is this the one where the female T-Rex comes in?
Well, almost, but this is exactly then. The Allosaurus shows up on the other side of the chasm, because apparently that's the borderland between the Tyrannosaurus.
Okay.
And they trick Grumpy into going towards the chasm to, well, not fight or eat or anything, but basically to bicker with each other across this, what seems to be maybe a 6... Right. It was like, say that louder.
What?
What you just said. Yeah, it was good.
I said it was so jarring there. I was like, oh my God, you're giving me a headache.
and like they can't possibly lean over and bite each other, which is, I guess at least consistent that Grumpy never leans over, except when they kill something.
The perfect way to just get the hell out of there. Let them fight with each other and you get out of there.
Well, that would be too easy.
Right.
Exactly. That's
worse than that. They decide the place to hide is down the chasm, which Holly was terrified of just 3 episodes ago. But now that you can just slide down the escarpment, and they slide down the escarpment in the chasm, land on what, I have no idea. But Holly is not afraid of heights, and apparently it's a safe place for them to go, which is news to me, and there was no sign of yuck. So maybe she found her rock again. I'm not sure. So this is the kids hiding, because they're the ones who thought of getting Alice and Grumpy to pay attention to each other. Rick strategizes with the Pacuni to create a diversion, and Rick will pull them up. Now, he's yelling so that they understand in English, which is a bit obnoxious. But listen, we've all done that with people who speak different languages or deaf, and as if they're going to understand any better if they're speaking loudly, so I'm not going to chastise them too much for that, even though they're hippies and they should understand.
He was really going at him. He was yelling at him kind of violently.
He was, until he stopped. Yeah, but at some point he just goes, I hope they'll figure it out. And then he does a leap of faith. He just goes forward with it, and they understood inherently what it was, and trust has been achieved, and he successfully rescues the kids. And we get another Rickism. Also a little bit strange for the overall motive of, I don't know, the tempo of the show, but I guess appropriate for 1974. And he goes, Alice, I'm going to teach you to talk like a lady.
Oh. Don't even. I was like,
no, this is for you.
What?
This is for you. Go on your soliloquy.
This is for me?
Yeah, get angry.
What do I have to say? It just was like, I wanted to smack him.
Okay, that's good. That's the kind of action we're looking for here. Okay, so now they become friends, and they shake hands this time. And you know what the humans do? They teach the Pakuni how to harvest via the pulley system and teamwork, so the Pakuni don't have to steal the vegetables any longer. They can farm them themselves, and they can share the carrot and turnip patches and whatever else is there. For whatever reason, they didn't teach them how to pick berries, but the theft problem was solved. It's except Dopey, and we also learned that in Pakuni, remora means friend, which I don't know if this is an accident or not, but remora is a parasite fish that live off sharks, but it's a synergistic relationship. So they sort of clean sharks' teeth. So I think friend helping each other, I don't think that was an accident. So that is a Garden of Doom deep dive. What do you guys think?
Well, my question was, what did they eat before they came along? I didn't understand why they had to teach them how to harvest vegetables off the land. What did they survive on before they came along?
My guess is that they were scavengers. They would take what was unleft, or they would steal from the herbivores.
All right, but that's just a guess.
It is just a guess, but I don't know. I mean, I didn't write the damn thing. Mark, what do you say?
I mean, obviously they survived for whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they. I wonder. Do we really know that they didn't know how to harvest those things, or they just had tools to do it that the Paku didn't have? So when the humans were able to harvest it, it was easier just to steal it from them rather than having. It probably took them 6 days to pull a carrot out of the ground, a radioactive giant carrot.
On steroids.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a good question. I think they were eating turnips and carrots. I just don't know if it was easy for them to find them or get them.
Yeah, they were just like, you do all the work and I'll take it. I don't know how to do it myself.
Well, there were also
we'll just take it from you.
There were also giant berries and giant strawberries, and so they could have just eaten those things that they picked and not dealt with the other stuff. Also, we go back to somebody wrote "Beware of Sleestack," so there may be other humans there, and they may know other places to scavenge from. I mean, they've been there longer. It's their world or something. We don't know, but we'll find out. So next we get to episode 6, which is our final episode this week, The Stranger. And this episode is deep. This episode is written by Walter Koenig, who people might remember from the original Star Trek and the movies. It's Mr. Chekhov. And this has so many levels. This is why I decided that we can't go through 9. We're gonna get to this one and stop with this one, because this one is like the blue whale of Land of the Lost episodes. So we start with plenty of strange and unfamiliar foods. It could be dangerous. The kids are still fighting, and they need a guinea pig to eat the food. So they need to find someone to eat it to make sure it's safe. Rick gives a lecture on survival, and then he decides he's going to go to the arbor and leave the kids alone. So his lecture apparently is enough, even though the kids never listen. So Rick again being a lousy parent and making another bad choice. Sharon.
Just the whole thing with the guinea pig. Let's kill something else. I just was like, what does that even mean? What are they going to find that's going to be like, here, you eat this?
Well, you remember what Will said in episode 2.
What happens to you?
It's the law of the jungle. It's the law of the jungle. So then we hear sounds from the cave, and they're sort of machine-like. The Sleestacks are stalking despite it being daytime. So that's what I think both of you pointed this out earlier, that they sometimes have no problem operating in daylight. Now, one theory is that they're in the jungle. Maybe the canopy of the jungle makes it bearable for them. The other is that, well, it's just story inconsistency. Or mine, that none of this is real.
I think it's story inconsistency. I think at some point, they wrote what they wrote to appease that episode, and they never really worried about if it made sense with previous or future episodes.
Dun,
I
dun.
guess they're also assuming that children aren't really going to be making these connections. I don't know.
Possibly.
Well, I have to say that when my son, I read him the Harry Potter books. I can't tell you what, really young, he made these connections between don't you remember that in that book and that this is connected? And I'd be like, no, I don't. But I'm like, so I kind of feel like they weren't giving kids enough credit that they would be making these connections.
Well, like Sid and Marty Krofft, did you inhale? All right, no comment. It's fine. So the kids.
Who knows?
So the kids decide to retreat to the cavern tunnel system, which doesn't seem like a good idea, but since their father is Rick, who makes bad decision after bad decision, this seems to be a DNA thing rather than a stupid thing. Somehow Rick found them despite having no idea where they were, so he intuitively knew that they're idiots like him and they would retreat to the cavern system. And this is a recurring theory where he seems to find them with ease no matter what, even though there's a whole world and a jungle and all sorts of, doorways into this.
And the kids have no idea how they got there, but somehow Dad finds them. Yes, I definitely noticed that.
And this episode really solidifies that the Land of the Lost World is like a precursor to those video games where you're in a closed world and sometimes you can't go through the wall, sometimes you can't go through a door, but some doors you can go through, and sometimes if you knock something to the side, you find a pathway. But whatever it is, you're staying in that closed universe. So I think every Player One game, adventure game, was fraught from the mind of, or should give some credit to Land of the Lost with this whole closed universe thing. So, there's slee stacks everywhere, which means, of course, we see 1, 2, or 3 at a time from different directions. They run to the light. That makes a little bit of sense. Rick fends them off with what is basically like a triangle frame with a string with a crystal dangling from it. And Rick, for whatever reason, calls it a key. But as soon as he calls it a key, a pale slee stack comes out wearing Fred Flintstone's tunic and having bejeweled hands. And he's also shorter. And he says, "It's a divining rod." And then he uses magic gestures and this shoos the slee stacks away as if he's like the lord of the slee stacks. He introduces himself as Enoch the Altrusian. Now, this is an aside, but until we did this retrospective, I was sure that it was Enoch, like from the Dead Sea Scrolls Book of Enoch, and I cannot tell you how disappointed I was to learn that it's Enoch, not Enoch. And if you've ever listened to any 10 episodes of Garden of Doom, you would know why. Cheap plug, go back and listen to the catalog. This is episode 31. There's 30 other wonderful episodes out there. And very varied, just like my crazy-ass mind. So, Enoch the Altrusian points out that the slee stacks are his ancestors. He is born 100,000 years in the future. He says, "No one belongs here." He's going to use the divining rod, which now he refers to as the Majetti, to get back to his time. It could conceivably help the Marshals, but he then summons smoke, and he requests the Majetti back. He is the keeper of the time portals. Rick seems to understand. He's very understanding. He's very unselfish in this particular case. And he also realizes, or they realize, that Enoch is a telepath. Somehow he understands what they're saying without them speaking the words. He mentions that the divining rod, now back to divining rod, locates and fixes dimensional doorways. Well, this is like great. This is the panacea. This is the solution to everything that they wanted. Holly points out to Enoch that it's good manners to let people finish their own sentences. And you know what? Enoch takes that lesson in stride. He's like, "You're right. I'm very rude. I'll get out of your heads and let you talk." He also points out that force could render the Majetti unusable. It has a self-destruct device built in which is amplified by outside force. While it's very powerful, it's a defensive weapon. So Enoch's people, pretty smart. They had certain fears, which we will get to very shortly. And I know I'm going on a little bit of a soliloquy here, and everybody's going to get their chance to dive into this one, but I want to world build or scene build on this one so we get some of these things out of the way before we get into our freestyle. Will is very skeptical. He goes after the Majetti. Enoch proves it by getting Will all in pain and whatnot just by the power of his mind. And Rick gets physical here. He's normally nonviolent, but, maybe it's to protect his kids. Later on, we figure out that sometimes he just gets physical, or maybe he realizes that's what he has to do to survive in this dangerous world. And Enoch states, it's the failure of the human race. It's a failure of the human race that it's quick to violence. That is why they are inferior. A, he knows about humans, and right now I realize he is very much a stoic Vulcan. A lot of parallels between Enoch and Vulcans. Sharon is shaking her head.
I disagree. I thought he was a very angry person for someone who's not supposed to have anger. It was yelling. I thought he was very angry.
Okay, we're gonna revisit that shortly.
You felt like Enoch was, or Rick?
Yeah, no, Enoch. They really got into it, and I'm like, for someone who's supposed to be, like how you were saying, a Vulcan with no emotions, I was like, I don't know, I'm feeling a lot of anger here.
That's an interesting observation because he is a little bit inconsistent, just like everyone else. Now, he states that if not for a disturbance in his voyage, I put in parentheses, the earthquake? Is it the same earthquake that brought him here? He would be where and when he's supposed to be, with his people. Turns out that this divining rod is not the Majetti. It's just part of the Majetti. The Majetti is 2 pieces. So a little bit of a dialogue inconsistency here as well. And this is where he tells us that it's not jewels, they're crystals. So this is where they actually tell us the term is crystals. And he mentions that they are 4th dimension loads. So 4th dimension is often referred to as time. So makes sense. And there's crystals everywhere. And Enoch points out that that's not possible. And they mention that there's crystals everywhere in the Lost City. They don't even mention Jefferson's cave. And Enoch is intrigued. He's wondering what's going on. So before Enoch wanted them to basically get the fuck out of there and leave him alone, now he's intrigued. Now he's less dismissive. He's like, well, hey, let's go for a walk, fellas. So they venture out together for a common goal. Holly again senses trouble, and she's right again. It's the Sleestaks. Enoch says he'll tell them to leave, but they're not listening, and he doesn't understand why they're attacking despite there being no threat. I don't understand why the threat matrix is what gets them to go when he magically shooed them away 5 minutes earlier, and now it's not working. And he cannot believe that his ancestors are violent. They get to the Lost City, but they're blocked by Alice while the Sleestaks are in pursuit. So I think this is a good time to circle back to all of you and let you get your impressions. Erin, you've been gone for a while, so why don't you join in here and you can start on your impressions of this very important sequence.
For which part? Because there's a lot.
You can start where they met Enoch or wherever you like.
Well, because I am an incredible Star Trek geek, I do see the parallels with the Vulcan. Spock was not without his passive-aggressive attentions to things. But I think when it came to Enoch, the big thing was when they turn around and they're talking about how any kind of anger will destroy the, what's it called again? The
Majetti.
The Majetti. That any hostile impulse will destroy it. And it's interesting because, theoretically he's keeping that at bay. And let's face it, Wesley and Rick, that's not their strong suit. I just thought it was really interesting that when he comes around, and then I'm jumping ahead to the apology, but when he brings up the mist and brings up the terrifying fears that they have, and he turns around and has pointed out that that's just as violent, it's just not physical.
True. All right, Sharon, I know you have strong feelings on this.
I do, and I feel like they all just flew out of my head. So you're just asking I'm just talking in general about the whole anything about the episode?
To the point where they get into the Lost City. But don't consider that a strict rubric. Just whatever. This is freestyle, freeform.
Well, I kind of feel like I'm going back to my observation before about the race, how it de-evolved, that he was realizing that his civilization was already there, and that somehow they all de-evolved into what they are. Here they are, this great society that, let's say, how the Egyptians had such a sophisticated, society, right? And all of these ancient ruins that we find from these indigenous societies, they had these very advanced civilizations, and now he's looking at the future, and he's just like, oh my God, look what we turned into. We de-evolved into, like, all we're doing is with these little slingshots here, and that they're these very angry, violent people, right. Or species, whatever. So, because he's coming here, and he's like this almost like this Yoda guru, like, oh, I'm like, this all being, and then how did they get to like these lizard people?
Yeah.
So I feel like what's going into my head.
Well, they listen to QAnon.
Hostility that I'm sorry.
They listen to QAnon. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing, is that you don't necessarily have to be physical to be violent.
Well, that's what we learn. We definitely learned that lesson shortly.
Yeah.
Mark, what do you have to say?
I don't have much to say about it. This is one episode that I don't have the ability to turn on my Star Trek portal. I actually watched this and I'm like, what? Another one. I'm like, what is this? What? He's coming from where and going to where, and their ancestors, they're not ancestors. I'm not going to offer much insight on this one.
That's fine. So we'll go back. We'll rediscover the action. So because they get to the Lost City, bring us back to that. It's blocked by Alice. Sleestaks are in pursuit. Rick's going to create a diversion so they can get to the Lost City. So again, Rick now is being heroic all of a sudden, where at other times he's a coward or useless. And then the Sleestaks are shooting at him, and basically he's got like his right arm behind the tree, and the rest of him is clearly out there, and they're not even close. And he goes, "No wonder you guys are so angry. You're such lousy shots." So he's mocking them. So that was my favorite Rickism, I have to say, at least in the smarmy phase. So Alice decides to chase the Sleestaks, which makes no sense because we learned that she's protecting the city, and one of the reasons she's protecting the city is because she's protecting Sleestak eggs. So she's protecting Sleestak eggs, which I presume hatch into little Sleestaks, which she would also be protecting and not eat. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any Sleestaks, but she's not protecting the adult Sleestaks. So I don't know. Maybe she can't tell the difference between humans and Sleestaks when they're together. She is a dinosaur of a different world, but that made no sense to me. Enoch, at this period, says that he realizes he made a grave error. He didn't go forward. He went backwards. The Sleestaks are his descendants. The Lost City was his city. And now he's crestfallen. And basically, I'm like, yeah, bitch, who's inferior now? The Sleestaks destroyed your own kind. You are the Sleestaks. You're the monsters. So, in the Lost City, the jewels must be arranged in a specific arrangement, and it requires solitude and concentration. So again, he's dismissive. Leave me alone. Whenever Enoch gets what he wants, he's dismissive. So he's very robotic in that. As Sharon calls it hostile, I just think that he still thinks he's superior and they are lesser beings. They're basically tools. They are means to his ends, and he dismisses them. But I'm not dismissing Sharon's theory, where we definitely want to explore.
Where him and Will were like yelling at each other. They were like literally arguing with each other and yelling at each other. And I just was like,
Indeed.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm bringing like the yoga in me, but I just feel like when I'm around gurus, it's like there's just like this calm, and he was supposed to be this, like, our whole basis of society is based around this.
But was it?
Right? And then it felt like he was arguing with Will, and Will's yelling at him, and he's yelling at him back. And I was just like, this is like, a breakdown in communication. This is not an efficient way of communicating.
But maybe they achieve their peace not through really being superior. It's like peace at what cost? We don't know. Just because he thinks they're superior doesn't mean they're superior. Yeah, look at that.
It also backtracks a little bit, because it kind of foreshadows that they did fall apart as a society. He thought he was so superior, but they weren't.
Right. And he slowly gets to that conclusion. But it's a slow burn, and I get it. We're all stubborn. He's obviously prideful. His entire life, which who knows how many eons that spans, he believed that his people were the superior. They were the pinnacle. They were the superior species. So
they were at the time. How many times we think we are now, also, and then we.
Well, I don't.
100 years from now, we're gonna look back and be like, look at what they didn't have.
I agree with that 100%. But remember, Enoch knows humans. He's been around other species, or at least this one, and has his opinions on them. So anyway, once Enoch gets back to his tools, he can't help them. While these portals can go through time and space, all of a sudden he doesn't know the combination to their home. There's only one doorway. This is new information. He was obviously withholding this, or the script writers decided to change things, or the writer, Walter Koenig, he had a whatever, Koenig. And he must return to Warner's people to avoid this future. Okay, well, that makes sense. Okay, that's sort of a bit of nobility. Will, he's not buying it. He's like, no, this is our way to get home, and we're just as important as you are, and there's 3 of us and 1 of you. So Will takes the divining rod, and at this point, Rick is really too fair, and he wants Will to give it back to Enoch. So Rick, I'm not sure if he was making a bad decision, but immediately siding with the guy with the horn on top of his head that looks like the guys who are shooting with crossbows, that doesn't sound like very good daddyism to me. What do you guys think about that? Okay.
Stand by your kid.
Yeah, stand by it. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to stick with...
Could he have been worried that the hostility between them would destroy it?
He could. He might have been worried about that. But it just seemed like he was buying into all of Enoch's talk. I mean, if you are in dinosaur time-lost circle world where everything's trying to kill you, I mean, the one principle that you can stick to is family.
Tell you that this is your way out.
Yeah.
This is your way out.
Principle 1,
I'm taking this.
Stick with family. Principle 2, let's all get the fuck out of here together. So it doesn't seem to be that way. And Will points out there's no way any one man can do that, even Enoch. Okay. First of all, he's not a man. Second of all, what's this even Enoch? They've known him for 15 minutes. He talks a good game, but, he's inconsistent. And I know that Will's 15, but what is this even Enoch? Like he's Jesus? What is this? Erin. Mark.
Well, that's just his perception. I mean, that's just his perception that he sees this time traveler guy. Just because he says it doesn't mean that it's fact or fiction. That's just his perception of this weird ass guy.
Erin.
I just feel like it just speaks to the whole 70s thing. It was the anti-war movement and all that kind of stuff, and what can one man do? So working against authority. I just feel like that was kind of a sign of the times.
I feel like that's the opposite of the 60s. I mean, the 60s, we have everyone's hope was in Kennedy, then in Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King. I mean, and what can one man do on the opposite? You had Nixon. He was the ultimate villain. So I think individualism, like one man. I mean, we were just coming out of Stalin and Hitler, so singular people, I think back then was maybe more of a thing than it is now. But I don't know. What do you think, Sharon?
I don't know that I'm following. I'm a little lost.
Okay.
So I feel like I'm not following what you're asking me.
Well, I try to get everyone involved. Mark, you have any thoughts on that?
I do not.
Okay.
I mean, I listen. I appreciate what you say, and it makes sense now that you said it. I didn't connect those dots in my own brain, but once again, what we're doing here is just coming up with our own theories. Because I think if you asked Sid and Marty, they were probably so high they don't even know what the fuck.
I actually would like to add a child to this panel because to me, I feel like if the kid was watching this, I just feel like that would be like, I feel like they would say the most profound things.
Do you have a child in mind?
I feel like they would just say stuff and you'd be like, yes.
Do you have a child in mind for this panel?
I don't have it. I mean, I have my son who's 15, but it's like I'm talking about like a young kid.
Well,
they actually tried
I'll go find one.
Well,
I actually tried to show it to a patient. We were working on something. She's 10, and she was paying attention for a while, but but today there's such little going on in the background to get the attention. And it's only 20 minutes trying to get the attention to really pay attention to it.
To be honest, it took me a lot to have my attention on it.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't stop.
To the kid, it took me a lot to sit my ass down and just watch this, and I was like,
yes, but then
every time the dinosaurs came.
But you're a liar because then you binge watched.
You also can't show this to an 8-year-old or 9-year-old, call it 6, 7, or 8-year-old, and have them have the same reaction that we had when we watched it in 1974. I mean,
legal disclaimer: unless it's one of your children, I'm not dealing with parental releases or anything like that. So
I'll see if my son would watch it. I'm very interested.
I've got a 15-year-old.
Well, you both have 15-year-olds. Your 15-year-old wouldn't even say hello to me, so forget it. He's fired.
I know.
All right, so moving back to the show, Will and Holly have nightmarish visions. Then all of a sudden, Rick has them too. Enoch mentions that the mist shows your worst fears. Return the pendant to me to end the fear. Rickism. Isn't this just as bad as the physical violence you abhor? You know what, Rick? Damn Skippy. You are right. Hell to the yeah. Finally.
If he didn't get nominated for an Emmy for this episode, then he had never had a chance in his career of ever getting nominated. He was like really pretty spectacular in this episode, especially when he started to go through his
Here. I'm gonna drink a scotch later to that.
Watching. What were they so afraid of? That's what I wanted.
They were seeing images in their head. They
afraid of what though? Like in my head, I'm thinking in my head, what am I afraid of that would be like? I don't know. I couldn't. That's what I was wondering. I wanted to know, what were they afraid of?
Well, maybe next episode.
Shoes of Rick Marshall.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Or Marshall Rick. So, another Rickism back to back. He goes, it is not the absence of hate that will save your people, but the presence of compassion and fear. If you can't grasp that, then your people are doomed. Enoch, all of a sudden, has an epiphany. Perhaps I lost sight. I apologize. So that was quick. Will decides to return the pendant. And he's like, you know what, Enoch? If you can save your people, you deserve a chance to try. Now, I don't think Will put this together, but it is possible that if Enoch succeeded and saved his people, since he was going to the past, it may have improved their conditions in the present of the land of lost as well. I doubt that Will put that together, but I'm not gonna say it's impossible.
But I also have to say that who gives a shit if you just want to get the fuck out of there? Who cares about, like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, live in harmony with these people so that this guy can go back and, like, change the evolution of the people, whatever. Or get the fuck out and go home. Like, I don't know. I still would just be like, I want to get out of here and I want to go home.
I also want to see...
40 years later, there were going to be 4 idiots like us trying to dissect it. All of the reasons of why they were doing what they were doing, so they had to do that. Otherwise, there'd be nothing for us to talk about right now.
And the show, it was 23 minutes, and they're having it.
Audience, I apologize. Mark's second language is English. His first language is some side of Ugro-Agrarian or Finno-Agrarian, where idiots means experts. So.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Right. So, also on that, I think that I may go back and see if there's any correlation between when Will is wise and stupid, whether or not he has 3 or 4 buttons open on his shirt. I'm thinking about
it's always 4. I counted.
It is not always 4. There's definitely times when it's 3.
Or was it 3, but he went back?
Yeah.
Why?
Why? He's a sexy motherfucker. That's why.
Like, he was the fucking jerk, man.
He was the Simon Cowell of 1974.
Oh my God, Simon Cowell, my God. Okay, so
John Cassidy, Greg Brady.
Wasn't
it a kid show though? I feel like.
Was it though?
Wasn't that like inappropriate?
Was it though? No. I don't think it was. I think it was just disguised as a kid show. I think it was sold as a kid show, but it's definitely not a kid show.
Well, but you could say that about look at the Banana Splits also.
Well, we might.
Banana Splits was a kid show with most of it there for the parents to enjoy also, or the parents to be hallucinating while the kids are watching it.
Well, that's nothing. I mean, The Simpsons, SpongeBob, I mean, lots of shows do that. But please hammer, don't hurt them, because if you keep this up and you play your cards wrong, we're going to be doing the Banana Splits retrospective afterwards and then HR Puff and stuff, and you're going to be in my orbit trapped forever. And once the Garden of Doom's roots are in you, it's like you become the Swamp Thing.
That's my childhood, though. I mean, you just listed my Sunday mornings.
Yeah, sign this consent right here. Just sign there. Okay, so let's get to the show, because we're nearing actually the end of it, and then we can discuss it at length. The Sleestaks appear, and Enoch tells them to take a blue and a green crystal together, and Rick, put your hands on the children. So Rick's between them with his hand on one shoulder of each of the children. They place the stones together, and there's a short-lived force field. And Enoch says the Sleestaks won't bother him. How he knows that he's right this time, I don't know. Maybe it's a cave thing. Maybe being with the crystal sort of amplifies his aura. I'm not really sure. So he was right this time. The Sleestaks didn't bother him. The force field did keep the Sleestaks at bay. It sort of shocked them or whatnot. Rick turns, and Enoch disappears into a lighted, smoke-filled doorway, and they say, "Good luck, Enoch." And that's where we end this episode. So, guys, how you feeling?
I loved it because I'm a huge Star Trek geek, but so it was hitting all my buttons. But I'm very, very strange.
We're all very strange. That's why we're doing this.
I don't think you're any different than any of the rest of us.
Yeah, I hope not. And
we're all sitting here having this conversation.
and enjoying it.
Expecting it like this. I mean, as a kid, in 1974, 75, 76, when I watched it, I certainly was not bringing up themes like this. It's interesting to revisit it and see if we could figure out what was really going on a different level. It's interesting. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, but the other thing is, back in the day, there were 4 channels for TV. So you had 4 channels for TV, and then it's not like you had choices. So everybody of our generation, if you were watching TV, you were watching these, but then you were also seeing the news. So I feel like even when we were younger, I mean, for me, I grew up in Jersey, New York. So, I mean, you'd hear about things like Son of Sam. I mean, it's not like anything was sanitized. So you hear all this stuff that was going on that were social issues, political issues. So that's why I feel like looking back on it now, it just kind of dovetailed with everything else. Like all those shows like Good Times and The Waltons and, all that stuff. They were all bringing up things that were like race and...
What about Bad News Bears? You ever watch that movie now, the original Bad News Bears?
Oh, yeah, that was a giant mistake. Giant...
You want to talk about giant mistakes? Don't forget that when we were kids, well, I'm going to say we, and like you said, Erin, we had 5 channels, so like everybody was watching everything. Think about the context of oh my God, it just went out of my brain. The kids. Hold on, someone talking up. Just completely destroyed.
I hate to bring this up.
With buckwheat.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Little Rascals.
Thank you. I mean, think about, could you imagine if you showed a 20-year-old woke kid today that's something we used to watch, or it's, now we're getting to a whole different conversation, but it's insane.
Yeah, my 15-year-old, there are things that, even I think I had this on in the background. He was doing something else. And he's like, "Wow, racist much?" And it was, and we were I was watching Land of the Lost. I'm like,
okay. J.J. Walker on Good Times used the N-word, on TV. Think about All in the Family. Could you imagine if you showed a 15-year-old woke kid All in the Family right now and said, "This is what we used to watch"?
Bad News Bears, he's sitting there drinking his beer cans while he's driving a car with kids in it. It was, because all I remembered as a parent were movies that I loved. So then I show it to my kids, and I'd be like, oh my God.
110%.
He just was thrown right into everything. Like there was no, they're so sanitized. And then on the other hand, they're not,
say to Rick about the chores, though. That was one thing that, like, with all of these shows, all these kids had to step up and pull their weight. And, you know, the ones that I was already talking about.
And also survival.
Oh, yeah.
Here in suburbia, we're not in survival mode, you know. Like, they all have to pitch in and do stuff because they have to, you know, you have to go out and wander around and get lost and get your own water in a big plastic container. But otherwise, you're not going to drink.
Well, I think that you guys all did remarkable with this, and I hope you enjoyed it. Did you think it was fun?
Yes.
I did actually.
Good.
And I still want to be all your friends.
This is great. Well, we're one show in, but yeah, I want to do this again, and I consider this to be a big success so far. Hopefully the audience will enjoy it too. Please, guys, share it with your 6 Degrees of Separation and encourage them to listen to the prior 30 episodes or some amount of them. Show's not for everybody, but the episodes are very different, so maybe it is for everybody. You just have to find which sort of family of episodes is for you. We are really all over the place. But the audience listening knows that, except for the guys and gals that you bring in. So I think with that, we can probably end this week, and we will all start watching episodes 7 through 12. And once we get through 12, we can make a decision as to if those are chunky enough or if we can go further along with the story. But that will be decided another day. And it will be no sooner than 4 weeks from now, so nobody needs to rush or feel panicked. I have the next 2 weeks booked, and I have April 7th sort of reserved for one of several guests, which I'm sure we'll make do. And I have a mid-April date also reserved for, we're going to study the Luciferians. Next week, audience, it's a reunification of sorts. We're reuniting me and Shah, the original 2 co-hosts of Garden of Doom. We're coming back, and we're going to get into what he likes, which is cults. But it turns out one of the cults we were looking into really isn't a cult at all, so that'll be a short discussion. But the other one we'll certainly discuss, and then we'll do what Shah wants to do and wanted to do in the original show, which you can hear in his show, Breaking the Apocalypse, with our good friends I Am John Draper and B. Show Brian, who I'm wondering when he gets promoted to A. Show Brian. And we'll talk about some current affairs, and I know that cancel culture and things like that are on their mind. I try not to delve into those things too much, but listen, Shah's been very patient and lets me use his Spreaker, so he can bring those things up if he wants to. He'll also talk about horror movies that I've never heard of, so that'll be fine. Folks, panel, do you have anything you want to say to the audience? Of millions and millions. That was The Rock, by the way. You're so impressed by me. Peace out. Good job, Sharon. Mark?
Yes.
Say goodbye to the good people.
Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again in a few weeks.
Yeah, you're actually going to hear Mark again in 2 weeks. He's going to be doing a solo show. We're going to talk about his being a big shotedness and how he became a big shotedness and why I keep misusing that word. A word I made up.
That should be the key of the episode.
It will, because everything comes back to me. Don't worry. I'm like the tree of life in the Garden of Doom. Erin, how about you? What do you got to say?
Tune in 2 weeks to listen to Mark's solo podcast.
Well, it's not solo. It's just he's the only guest. I mean, I'm still going to be there to ruin, guide everything.
And if you haven't, here I can do my plug that if you haven't listened to Garden of Doom's poetry and was it the Satanic podcast, they're definitely worth a listen.
Yeah, and if you don't mind things that are a little bit controversial, you should listen to the Indigenous episode as well. It's pretty interesting, and we take it from very interesting. Yeah, it was good. This is an interesting show. Not that I want to toot myself, but I guess I can toot it here. But my brain is very scattered, but it can be very focused at a time. I'm like Mr. Curious. I'm interested in a lot of things. And I firmly believe that everybody has a story and everybody has something that fits into the landscape that is the Garden of Doom. So, guys, thank you very much. We will reconvene. I'm sure we'll be texting mercilessly about this going forward. I appreciate all of you. Folks, tune in next week. Go to the Facebook page. You can catch Hammerlock Hangover, my wrestling podcast. By the way, those wrestling fans, we have sort of famous wrestling-related attorney Stephen P. New. He filed a suit against Ring of Honor and Sinclair Broadcasting partly to invalidate the independent contractor status of wrestlers, which has sort of been a bane in the existence of pro wrestling for a long time. And we have the first interview with him. It's a Hammerlock Hangover exclusive. And he's representing Kelly Klein, former Women of Honor champion with Ring of Honor, who was fired or basically not re-signed because she was concussed, because she had the audacity to want $24,000 instead of the $20,000 that they offered her. And Joey Mercury was also is a plaintiff who was basically an agent and producer who was signed to be a wrestler and did everything but. So that's an interesting interview. So check that out, please. You can also find me on the UPR, the Unpopular Review Network, which is a YouTube and Facebook and Twitch streaming service. Lots of fun stuff there, entertainment and wrestling. You guys have anything you want to plug, or are you not into that thing? Mark, do you have anything you want to plug?
To come to the Nassau County Museum of Art in Roslyn, New York, on Long Island, we have a beautiful women's exhibit, and a docent, for those of you who don't know, is the person who gives the tour. A lot of people don't know what a docent is.
That's good.
So I give the tour of the museum. So if anybody's on Long Island or in the area, you want to come see the show.
Tell them Garden of Doom sent you. And Mark,
yes.
And Mark, you're going to get your chance in a couple of weeks, but do you want to plug the show that you're working on or anything that's out right now?
I am currently working on an 8-part limited series for Hulu and Disney called Dope Sick, which is based on a book by Beth Macy about the opioid pandemic and the Sackler family and OxyContin and Purdue Pharmaceuticals. And it was written, well, I shouldn't say that. It was written by a guy named Danny Strong. You can look him up. He's a former actor he created Empire and a few other shows. Michael Keaton, Rosario Dawson, and a bunch of other names that you might know are starring. And Barry Levinson was the director of the first 2 episodes. And then we have 3 other directors directing the remaining 6. And it will be on Hulu probably sometime in September or October.
And is the movie on Netflix still available?
Devil All the Time is available on Netflix. There's another movie that I produced 2 years ago with Hilary Swank and Michael Ealy called Fatale. So if you look up Fatale, Hilary Swank, it's streaming somewhere. Obviously, it was supposed to be in the theaters. And because of COVID, it ended up streaming somewhere, which is a bummer because I like to see my producing credit on a big screen in the theater, but nobody will see that.
Oh, maybe one day. Anyway, so very good. See, I wasn't kidding when I told you he's a big shot. Barry Levinson, Michael Keaton, he's an A-lister. He's an A-lister, people. All right. And so am I, and so is Sharon, and so is Erin, and thank you guys again. And everyone, as Sharon put it so well a few minutes ago, peace out.
Peace out.
Marshall, Will, and Holly on the routine expedition met the greatest earthquake ever known. High on the rapids, it struck their tiny raft and plunged them down 1,000 feet below to the land of the lost. Come on, get out of here. Come on. Come on, Holly, let's go. To the land of the lost.
In a world where businesses can struggle with cash flow, come under attack from admin, and lose track of payments, invoices, and performance, one business and accounting software solution can help you find it all. Enterprise, the invoicing, accounting, and business software that saves the day from admin. Get paid in a flash and take control of your day. Start using now for free for life. Visit enterprise.com.
While adhering to restrictions when swimming, boating or angling, put safety first. Safe wears a life jacket on or near water. Safe swims and stays within your depth. Safe never mixes alcohol with water activities. This is Water Safety Ireland. Better safe than sorry. For advice, visit watersafety.ie, an initiative of the Government of Ireland.